Among the mysterious pages of our planet, stories with the sudden disappearance or appearance of people occupy a special place. The number of such phenomena is quite large, and it is not excluded that some of the stories about the disappearance of people simply embellished mysticism. But what to do with those of the evidence that have been repeatedly verified, and sometimes were classified, so as not to confuse the minds of contemporaries? Representatives of ancient civilizations also paid attention to the sudden disappearance of tribesmen. So when describing the battle in ancient Greece, it is mentioned about the dissolution of the warrior in the air, in which was launched dart. In this case, all that happened took a fraction of a second, so that the launched weapon fell to the ground without reaching the target, and in place of the missing warrior remained his weapon and shield. There was no worse shame than to lose a shield for a Greek warrior, so the assumption of lightning flight is not considered here. However, not only cases of sudden disappearances are known, but also cases of strange people appearing. Fanatical clergymen of the Middle Ages attributed the vaporization of people to the devil. But if there was a mysterious return of the missing, he was waiting for the most warm reception at the stake of the Inquisition. A similar case occurred in 1593 in Mexico, where a man in a strange military uniform appeared out of the sky, claiming to be from the Philippines, where the governor had just been murdered. At the time, mores were violent, and it didn't take long for the Inquisition to figure out what to do with the obscure alien. Sailors arriving on the ship a few months later confirmed the words of the unfortunate Filipino. In France in 1867, a certain Lucien Boussier felt attacks of weakness and turned to his neighbor Dr. Bonvillain. Turning away from the patient for a second, the doctor was surprised to find that Boussier disappeared, but his clothes remained. The search for the man was unsuccessful. Disappearance to nowhere is quite often observed in those who, by their occupation, is associated with the elements. These are pilots and sailors. There are more than enough stories about meetings of Flying Dutchmen, ships without crew, but quite often airplane crews or even airplanes themselves disappear without a trace. In 1924, 2 British pilots made an emergency landing in the sands of Iraq. Judging by the footprints, the pilots stepped not far from the airplane, after which the footprints in the sand broke off. Quicksand and wells were not found in the vicinity. There were no storms, but where the 2 Englishmen went is still unknown. However, not only 1 or 2 people disappear without a trace, hundreds and even thousands of people disappear. In 1937, during the war between Japan and China, a Chinese detachment of 3,000 soldiers to detain enemy troops was sent to the border of the Yangtze River, but the next day received a report that people disappeared. All of them. No bodies, no weapons, absolutely nothing was found. Repeated attempts to discover the fate of the detachment were in vain. The archives of Japan also contained no information about the capture of 3,000 soldiers. It is an unsolved mystery to this day. In 1930, all the inhabitants of the Eskimo village of Anjikuni, northern Canada, disappeared. According to eyewitnesses, the houses were empty, the tethered dogs died of starvation, and the local cemetery was dismantled, and even all the bones of the buried were missing. The option that the inhabitants suddenly packed up and left for some unknown place and for some unknown reason sounds implausible. Eskimos would never have left their faithful dog friends to die a hungry death. In extreme case, they would have untied them. And no one would have thought of disturbing the peace of their ancestors and disturbing the cemetery. Besides, the ground, frozen for many meters, would not allow to do it without the help of machinery. Often people who fell out of time do not remember anything about their out-of-time stay and do not feel the duration of their absence, and attempts to find out the truth under hypnosis cause the time travelers only vague images of strange people and unfamiliar places. Often people return with completely erased memory, so it is impossible to establish not only their date of birth or place of residence, but even their own name. People have been known to return after many years. One artisan from Italy melted in the air before the eyes of many witnesses, and only 22 years later was back at the place of his disappearance. Some scientists explain such disappearances with return by the state of trance, in which a person is immersed by unconscious self-hypnosis, in which state they enter under the influence of external influences, noise of rain, monotony of the road. At the same time, the consciousness draws vivid real images. Of course, the sense of time is lost. Perhaps such moments are present in some cases, but this does not explain spontaneous disappearances. Some people who returned after vaporization claimed that they had been to other worlds and that they had been abducted by representatives of extraterrestrial civilizations. However, most of such people do not remember anything. The universe is infinite and mysterious. It is quite possible that under certain circumstances, there are time holes in which people fall into. It is possible that a person simply disintegrates into atoms when passing through a time hole, but with equal probability, he can be thrown into the past or the future. Mankind has been afraid of the dark since the day of its birth. We have acquired electric lights, portable flashlights, candles. We are not afraid of the dark. We call the fear of the unknown that hides in the darkness catophobia. But in each of us deep inside still lives our distant ancestor, in terror, huddled around the fire in the cave, in fear, waiting for the coming of the saving dawn. They come in the night. The night shift is a special aspect of life. We are easily recognized by the bags under our eyes, by our shuffling gait, by the direction we move when you go to work or school. In the subway, we always walk towards you. Night work is a hard test for the body. Who does not believe can go to any medical encyclopedia and see what such a violation of biorhythms leads to. Sleep disorders, loss of muscle tone, overweight, hormonal disorders, deterioration of intellectual activity, the general decline of the body. According to the laws of most countries, we should be paid extra for harmfulness. A measly 5%, somewhere more, somewhere less. And really, why do we need us at all? Night workers of hotels, snack bars, subways, cleaners, salesmen, policemen, security guards, telephone operators, and many others. Who needs us? We are, after all, serving ourselves. You, the day people, have an instinct that makes you crawl into your warm holes as soon as the glittering ball leaves the sky. And only those who are dead by alcohol or blinded by love allow themselves to walk at night among those who have settled in it as drug addicts, prostitutes, and homeless people. Though even those disappear from the streets at suicide hour. Can't the streets and train stations be cleaned up in the early morning? Of course you can. But then you'll see the contents of garbage bags moving, that the contents of buckets of dirty water are somehow turning red, that some items the janitors don't risk picking up even with gloves on. I'm not talking about the syringes and cigarette butts that litter every public place. I'm talking about strange boxes, jewelry made of tarnished silver, coats with blood on the lining, of documents lost by hapless owners. Or is that all that's left of them? Purses that shine attractively on their plump sides and whisper, "Take it," in your ear. Notes with strange contents pasted on the walls. They got the easy jobs. I work in a hostel. My job is to keep out the people who come in at night. No, not prostitutes and drug addicts, not thieves and troublemakers. You'll know what I'm talking about when you see night travelers. They come in many forms. Seductive beauties who pile their impressive breasts on the counter and ask in a husky half-whisper if I'll let them stay the night. Homeless-looking people without age, wondering if there are free places. Young men pretending to be latecomers. Bunch of Asians laden with outdated gear and backpacks the size of their own. Teenagers trying to sneak in with others through the common door. No one gets past me. No matter how much this babe tries to drown my gaze in her cleavage right now, I will be adamant. Don't shove printouts of other people's reservations in my face. I know they're fake. Don't sigh. Don't clutch at your heart. Don't act tired. I know you just woke up. and that you don't have a heart. I recognize them in any shell. Empty, dead stares directed into the abyss within them, hands shaking with impatience. Beastly features through a human shell. The smell of decay coming from your mouths, open in impatience, reveals your true selves to me. Without an invitation, you are nothing, and you will not receive one from me. I'm sorry, sir. Your credit card doesn't work. Of course not, because you found it in a dumpster, and it's not in your name. No, sorry, driver's license isn't enough. I'm sorry, there are only rooms left at 300 euros a night. I apologize, but we're fully booked. No, unfortunately, there are no rooms left at all. You will sigh, you will sob, you will literally scrape your fingernails on my counter, and I, pouring cold sweat, will blindly stare at the monitor. These critters will sit in the lobby, trying to connect to Wi-Fi using long outdated and non-functioning phone models. They'll be ineptly smoking paper at the entrance. They will try to book a room using a laptop that is turned off. They will try to speak to me in different languages, swearing they missed the train, the plane, the steamer, the cycle rickshaw. I will politely apologize and say that, unfortunately, I can't help. Sometimes they find their way in. A silly young girl, charmed by a handsome student from another country who crawled out from under the nearest bridge. A cheerful tourist, blinded by lust, who drags a model-looking girl born from his own shadow and a subway billboard into his hotel room. Two friends who met in a bar. One complained that he had no place to spend the night, and the second distinguished himself with generosity and offered his room to a creature who crawled out of the mirror behind the bar. That's the kind of thing we check out in advance. There's nothing we can do. The invitation's been extended, and even if we stop him at the front door, he'll still get into the room. In the morning, the maid will add to our collection of forgotten things with the rest of the hapless tourists' luggage. They usually take the rest with them, although sometimes the unlucky ones get lucky and we find them dead of cardiac arrest. And that's a lot of luck, believe me. When we make our rounds, the stakes get higher. The creatures are already in our territory, with someone else's ill-advised permission. And that's when we take a heavy flashlight with almost scaldingly bright LEDs in one hand, hoping we'll catch something in the flashlight beam before it notices us. And in our back pocket, we have a little book, mostly consisting of copies of someone else's illegible handwriting. Sometimes the little book is filled with our notes in the margins. Sometimes it's very simple. If you hear crying coming from the women's restroom, never call out to anyone and certainly don't open the door. Just turn off the light and lock it. Sometimes it's more difficult, when you see someone slowly stomping down the hallway and leaning against the door as if listening. Then you have to overtake him on the fire escape and open the door to it. He'll come out on his own, but he won't be able to come back in. And sometimes, when you hear laughter from an empty room, it's better to just run. We're here. We're out in the night to keep you safe. We're the ones who'll stop the swings that swing by themselves at night in the yard. We're the ones who will drive away the one who knocks on doors at night begging to be let in. We're the ones who will remove mind-destroying videos from the internet. We're the ones who will destroy the life-destroying videotape. We will return to the grave a pet that has been acting strangely. We're the ones who won't let sound be born without a source. We're the ones who will make sure the doors that lead to nowhere are locked. But, you know, the price we pay for your safety is too high. We're getting tired. We're tired of working nights. And what are you gonna do when there's no one to keep you awake? Who's gonna switch shifts with me? This story happened when my mom was alive. I was about 4 years old, and my mom and I went to visit my aunt, her sister. My aunt lived in a 2-story house on the 2nd floor, next to the stairs leading to the attic. When my mom and I came to her door, my mom rang the bell and we waited for my aunt to open the door. I lifted my head up and looked up at the attic, and looked at the attic. From there hung some men's legs in kerzochas and suede and a piece of clothesline. When I looked up, I saw that there were many more ropes. Apparently they're used to hang laundry. At that moment, my aunt opened the door and we went into the apartment. I did not tell my mother about what I saw, because I did not understand yet, probably. And then when I was taken by my aunt to live with her, we with neighbor kids told all sorts of scary stories, and one girl, she was older than us, about 5 years, told that in that attic hang neighbor on the clothesline. And this story happened not so long ago, about 4 months ago in the fall with my dog. I was given a dog Staffordshire Terrier for my birthday. A girl, she will be 4 years old this year. She simply at me does not growl and does not bark, if only when playing and when sleeping, and on people, no, even when home stranger someone knocks. There's only been 4 times she's growled at a person, so I'm sitting at night in the cell networks. My husband is at work at night. And I hear how my dog began to growl. I did not pay any attention to her, thinking, again, probably something dreaming. But the dog did not stop growling and periodically began to whine softly. I turned my head and am amazed. She was not sleeping, but slowly walking in a circle, stopping in one place, looking at one point in the corner of the room and growling. Even the growl she had seemed not intimidating, but not confident some kind, as if she was afraid to growl, ears tucked, fur puffed and coloring changed. Fur stood up puffed, and from this it became darker. I became uncomfortable. I called her quietly. She looked at me, and it seemed that in her eyes read such horror. She looked at me, and it was as if she was asking me to get me out of here, to help me, to do something. She turned away from me and continued to growl uncertainly, occasionally glancing at me pleadingly. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. I was scared to go and just feel sorry for her. I got up the courage to quickly dress, took her behavior, and took her outside. On the street, she calmed down, even happy. We with her stood on the street and returned home, after which she immediately went to bed, and I followed her example and also went to bed.